Starting, Dan.
Yeah, ready when you are, mate.
Let's go for it. Welcome back on, Brad.
Hi. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
me.
you for coming on again. I know it's been about 7 months since you was last on. It was a
Yeah.
really fascinating interview, the first one, and I think we left it where we said we were going to follow on. It was going to be 2 weeks later. It's 7 months later. So a lot's happened since then. A lot of it's gone into the consciousness side of things. We're hearing it with Bledsoe, Ross Coulthard, and many other people. So I think we should start this one on how consciousness is connected to the UFOs and obviously the simulation theory. And I'm just going to listen to you, pal, and ask questions along the way. Dan's going to
Sure.
be joining, and hopefully Lee's going to join during it as well. So there might be three of us.
Yeah.
You're the expert here. Go for it, pal.
Yeah. So when I was on the first time, it was mostly about the story of what's been happening to us and this group of people in North America that have been having these extreme NHI experiences. It's for either through a combination of plant medicine, so altered states, or it's near-death experiences, or a combination of the two. Um, we've been able to pull in math, advanced quantum physics from a different dimension. We have figured out what is happening and how to induce this ability to connect through the veil. You're tuning yourself to it. And then once that happens, you're able to navigate these other dimensions. And there are beings and all sorts of craziness that happens inside of it. But one of the wildest parts of our story is getting these quantum equations and then starting to, like, we're not physicists, we're normal people, like a lot of prior military people that worked at Home Depot, um, that now understand quantum physics. But um, it started coming through. And so we didn't know what even some of the symbols were. And so we're starting to kind of play with it. This is right as Chat GPT 4 came out with the physics level understanding. And they're equations that connect um, uh, the modern physics and quantum physics, like with these missing links, these parts of our reality that we didn't understand existed. And so, as we're starting to understand this, like I wasn't a spiritual person at all. Like I didn't believe in anything. I just was interested in all of it. But we started realizing the connections that we have mathematically are starting to explain a lot of consciousness. And so we started to understand all of that, but having the way that this all started was with the DMT laser experiment. We can probably talk about that more later. There are symbols that run through it. There's symbols. Those symbols are matching up with former UFO and UAP reverse engineering programs, the CARET program, CARET. We talked about that last time. And so we started to make the connection between something we're seeing in the DMT space. And thousands of people have seen the exact same thing. Rogan, Sean Webb, they're all starting to talk about it. This is very real. But that these symbols then started connecting to UFOs, and then we started understanding that the math we had was based on consciousness, and that the UFO connection is heavily consciousness. You hear Stephen Greer talk about it. You hear when they're calling in UFOs and UAPs. Same thing with the Skywatchers. They're connecting psionically, and that's all connected to this. We to the point to where we understand the architecture of consciousness at every level, down to the quantum physics. And the way that that has come through is we got the primary external architecture in an equation. And then somebody we didn't even know got the internal part of the math of the inside the body. And another person that nobody knew got the connective tissue and how your body connects to this external field. And so we understand the mechanics of how all of that works, but what we've come to find out is consciousness is a primary field of our reality. It is going to be so much more important than the material physics that we've been studying for so long. This is primary. And so now that we understand the sandbox that we live in, we understand how psionic connections and consciousness affects our reality. We understand how advanced NHI and craft are able to use this. They are understand the consciousness part of it so much more than our humanity does, and they know how to use it and navigate and do all of these things with it. And so that's kind of where we started. Do you have any questions on any of that before?
I've got a question for you, Brad. So you
Yeah,
were stating about obviously like the DMT. You were talking about how Joe Rogan's experiencing the same sort of things and so on and so forth. Would you be on the same conclusion as sort of scientific proof that DMT actually sort of opens up a higher level of consciousness when when
yeah,
when you when you experience DMT, if
yeah.
that
So
makes sense?
the group that has accomplished this. So Danny Goler with the DMT laser experiment has done DMT thousands of times, and everybody in our group has done it thousands of times. But most people don't do that. Most people, because it is a powerful experience. Like if you were to ask me what are my top life experiences that I've had, the first few hundred lines are going to be DMT experiences. And then we'll get into what people would normally say. It is a lot of people will do it maybe three times. Like I think Joe says he's done it three times, and he said he's had enough. Like he's felt like he's got what he needed from it. But when you continue to push on it, you start to see patterns in it. So what we've come to find out is that DMT is in every living thing because it is the molecular mechanism that is necessary to be able to connect to the consciousness field. Our body uses that in trace amounts to always be connected to it. And when you flood your system with it, you become more of an antenna and receiver to be able to perceive that field. And so you are tuning yourself to a harmonic constant, which we can get into later because we just made a huge discovery with this week. Um, you're tuning yourself to that. But when you're connected to like the fifth dimension, the the boundaries and limits of interactions that can happen in that dimension and density is different than what happens here. And you can do unbelievable things. So we've learned how to master it. And so when all of this started happening, when you internally realize that that DMT experience that you were experiencing is real beyond a shadow of a doubt to the point like it's a gnosis. We call it the point of gnosis. There's zero doubt in it left. And for all of us that had gotten to that point before we figured out how to induce it, something had been given to us that was functional in this reality, meaning that showing us that we were getting actionable information that we didn't know. So that has to be real. And then you go in with a DMT trip that causes a gamma radiation or gamma brainwave spike that forces your crown chakra to explode open. So you talk about the yoga community or talking about Kundalini, they're doing the same thing with breath work and energy work, and they're moving through their chakras, which are the energy centers of the soul. The soul is for sure real, and it forces that crown chakra open. We're doing it a different way. And once that happens, it completely shifts how it interacts. It starts turning into a gateway. And so you start having these repeatable experiences. And then over the years, we've been able to do this, and the more and more people we've taught how to do this, we have learned how to fully navigate it. And so we can use sacred geometry and all of those things and actually explore it like a pilot than it's somebody going for an experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. What is because the simulation theory is always something. I came late to this idea. I always thought this was like, nah, it's cuckoo, right? I'm open to it now. I'm open to consciousness, and I've gone down another rabbit hole, and I'm there now with you. So, what for someone like me? What's your interpretation of the simulation? What is the goal of it? What's the purpose of it?
So, what was the purpose of it? So, the when you travel to the DMT space, a lot of people feel like they've been there for thousands of times. Even they're the most insane visuals you'll ever see. Like these spaces that you go into, or you can't physically explain it because you're trying to explain dimensional space that we don't have words for. But they said it feels very familiar. And then when you interact with the beings that everybody talks about, that feels like they've known you for thousands of lifetimes and you feel the same way. And it's because you have. Your soul is for the real part of this. And so your soul is needing to learn experiences to be able to become closer to God. So this is a simulation created by God. We understand how it functions. And so your soul is signing up for experiences here to be able to learn the lessons it needs to learn. And some of those lessons are really hard. It sucks to go through them. But the that is the intent of what is happening here. It is basically a school, but it's like a PhD level because there are some constraints that are added in this reality that make it really difficult.
It's fascinating. So you said then God, so that you believe there's a God.
Yeah, for sure.
So
There's
where
zero doubt.
can so there's so many religions on this planet, I think there's like 4,000 religions.
Mhm.
Where do all these religions fit in with this God? Is this God something that's not related to any of these books that are written on the planet, or
No,
is
so
up to that?
there's bits of truth in all of them. And so if you were to, I get in this conversation, I grew up a strong Christian. I understand that more than the other religions. But I do get into these conversations with Christians that only feel that anything outside of their biblical understanding is heretical. But that's going to limit them to be able to understand what's really happening and what the intent of it all is. But the way it works is the flood happened. Those stories then spread throughout the world. And that's why there's overlap in stories, but that these stories did take place. So, Buddhist, Hinduism, uh, Christian, Muslim, all of these events happened because that veil that we're talking about with the DMT laser experiment. What you're physically seeing, there's a physical veil that exists, and that is what you're seeing. But that separates us between us and these other densities. That wasn't always there. So it was more divine interactions were happening back in those days. And so they happen the way that they happen so that the people of that region would relate to it because they're not all going to relate to Jesus. They're not all going to relate to Krishna. So it's for them to have the best chance possible to have the understanding of how to connect with God that will resonate more with them for their region. But over time, in all of them, there are manipulations that have happened by man that have skewed it from being able to understand the true meaning of what was trying to be communicated.
Brad, can I just ask? So, a lot of my research, I've researched into religion and things like this because I used to be a religious person. But my sort of research took me down the Anunnaki route, obviously,
Mhm.
and there is scientific proof of DNA
Yeah.
manipulation. Um,
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, have any of your DMT experiences ever, or anybody that you know has ever come into contact with the Anunnaki that may have confirmed that, that is the case? Because if you look into religions, the Sumerian tablets, they all religions hold stories from the Sumerian tablets. So I'm just wondering if you've had any sort of confirmation from your experiences or anybody else that might actually answer that question.
Yeah, like no, it's there, it's real. And the way well, I'm going to lean on it's probably going to feel like I'm picking on Christians, but I'm just using that because I understand it more than the others. Um, there are going to be many stories attributed to Big G in the Old Testament that are actually stories of little g's. There are a whole lot of them and they exist. And so that's where the confusion comes from. But the stories overlap because we're talking about the same thing. From my understanding, the beings' names were Adama and Ava. That was their actual name. Um, and that there's gene manipulation and all of that. And then, yeah, yes, the answer is yes. But I don't know as far as their prophecies of coming back or any of that. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised after all this crazy stuff that's happening, especially in our lives and kind of Chris Bledsoe's, when all this starts unfolding more, um, we're gonna see more and more unusual interactions out in the open. Um, I'm kind of curious myself to see how that unfolds.
Um, I'm guessing there's people in the background that know this is true
Hmm.
and they're keeping this from the public. Are
Yeah.
they able to manipulate this in a way to serve them, to benefit them?
Yes. There's two different directions I can take that. I think I know where you're heading. I'm going to finish with that part. But we know for sure that the government knows this stuff. We've had interactions. Um, Chris Bledsoe talks about Tim Taylor and explaining what Tim explains to Chris what he does by asking him to watch the Adjustment Bureau. And it's like this liminal group
I watched
that
that the other day for the first time about a month ago.
Okay. So you have this group that is kind of protecting this. In our group, we have had interactions with one that is similar. It seems like Tim Taylor handles the UFO UAP conversation. This guy that we met deals with the NDE connection, so those near-death experiences. But I feel like they're a part of the same group because when he explained they speak in parables, and when he explained what his role is, I got shows to watch. So he wanted me to watch The Discovery with Robert Redford, and then the show called Proof that was on TNT. And he said that wanted me to watch that and these things, take notes, and that to keep in mind that they forced Proof to be canceled because it was giving away too many secrets. So I watched it, and the intent of what he was trying to say is that if people knew that there was life after death and understood the mechanics of how that works, it would affect the natural order of this reality and its intent, and that there is a group that tries to protect that from being known. And so there's the government. So, and then also we have the ability we've used DMT as a tool. Not all of us need it at all. There's some in our group that don't need it at all. But we can go visit places, and if we start kind of poking
Sorry,
around,
can you just stop that 1 sec? Can you explain that why some people don't need it? What's so special why they don't need that DMT?
some people are born with natural psionic abilities that are real, that are very, very, very real, and some of them are extremely gifted with it. Um, to the point to like we've now learned how to have DMT experiences and do group travel from and within our group, but we're all in different states. There's one person in particular that doesn't need it, and he can log into your brain and change your experience from a complete another side of the United States. Um,
Wow.
it's that kind of stuff. And so when you get into Skywatcher and those we're talking about those gifts, the Monroe Institute, the Stargate, like those are natural gifts. A lot of the religious people think that it's demonic, and it's not. It's just something that some people are born with.
So do you think that this has been weaponized as well? This is being weaponized as we speak, and maybe crimes that have happened, and people have said, "Oh, I don't know why I did this." It's been
There's a lot, but the government employs them as well to protect their spaces. Like we'll pop into spaces just kind of poking around, and there's people there waiting in the astral.
I'll ask about that, Brad.
Yeah.
Hi guys, by the way.
Hey, Lee.
You're right. I've been listening intently in the background. I was going to ask about that, and Matty's quite nicely led you into that. From various research I've heard rumors that there is essentially a group of it might be 300, it might be more, but essentially 300 gatekeepers which have been assigned by these Masonic orders, etc., who sole job is essentially like a shift system where they'll go online essentially or into the astral plane and they will guard records of halls. And you're saying, from what Matt's just led you into, that's true. That's legitimate.
That is legit. And so like, especially around NASA, they have what we'll call them guardians. They are usually they don't have many interactions because they're always surprised. And then we don't press the issue. If we run into something like that, we just kind of back out. But that is definitely for sure. The person that was kind of like Tim Taylor, we call him the monocle man in our group. There is some overlap with Freemasonry and that kind of stuff. So that there is some connection there, and I understand a lot of the mystery schools at extreme depth.
I spoke to Chris.
You spoke to what, Chris?
You mentioned Chris. I spoke to him last week, and just on that point, and I'll mention it. He says to me, he said that Tim Taylor is very busy recently. Like I said jokingly, just to see, I bet Tim Taylor's quite busy, and he said, yeah, he's extremely busy. So whatever's going on at the moment behind the veil is clearly Tim Taylor's a part of that.
Yeah, like the guy that we deal with has shown up in dreams for multiple people in our group, just sitting there watching. Like they have the ability to cross over and do some significant things. But I don't know if what's happening to Chris is completely related to what's happening to us. Like it's all connected, and it will converge. So
I have a sort of weird question. It might be a weird question, but to me, it's one I want to ask. There's a lot of crime that goes on this planet,
Oh
and
yeah, let's get into that.
could this not be used in a good way to, for example, find where McCasland is at the minute? He's gone missing for nearly two
Mhm,
weeks now.
mhm.
Or is there a
Yeah,
rule? Or is there a rule that they cannot interfere with what's going on? Because it's like all crimes could be solved in minutes with this technology, right? This ability.
yeah. Like there's I've got friends and that we've met through this that a lot of the times that's what they do. They work with police departments trying to find missing children and those kind of things. There is a lot of crime that exists, but this reality, part of what makes it so hard is the extreme duality that exists. But it's here by design. We're starting to see all of that stuff come to the surface and come out in the open because of the stage of the cycle that we're in is about to shift. And so you're seeing all of these dark manipulative systems when we get into, getting into the Rothschilds, getting into the Epstein files, getting into all the code information that they're talking about, the rituals, the ball, like all of that, that's all connected. And those have been manipulating us, and they've been using that for sure for personal gain. We understand the mechanics of it. We understand how they're structured. We can see the webs of Epstein and Hollywood and the Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve banking systems, their central banks. We understand how all of these things are connected and how everything is starting to shift. And so, yeah, absolutely, because there is a mystical side to our reality that they don't want us to know about, and the elites know how to use it for their self. And the way that they do that is extremely dark and disgusting. But the reason they do that is that because they understand that there is life after death, and that any soul that they take from this planet will end up in another body. And so they've been able to do rituals and those kind of things to even remove consciousness from one person and do things like it's really deep, but it's all related to consciousness.
I've got a question here actually. So the abduction experiences, could this be the simulators directly interacting with the subjects?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they don't need craft to do that. Um, it is extremely beautifully constructed, but it's extremely intricate of how this reality is maintained and um, it self corrects. When you get into abductions, like we have people in our group that have dealt with that. We don't fully understand. Intuitively, it really does feel like there has been some trade-off um, with our powers that be and beings that are here for some technology if they can do certain things. That narrative feels right, but I don't know. I can't confirm it.
Brad, have you heard of MD Selig?
No.
So this is an ex-Marine combat pilot. He served in the first Gulf. I only found him yesterday.
So
And
did I, funnily enough.
Yeah, I
I
watched
think
his.
it was you. I think it was your video.
Yeah, it was. I sent you it. But I watched the full interview, right? And this guy is there's a lot to it. Obviously, there's a lot of layers, and it all marries up to everything you've been saying thus far. But just to add some meat to the bones of what he's referenced with regards to human capabilities and this uplift of frequency that is suspected coming in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are just going to know it's essentially whatever Chris Bledsoe suggests it is. He says maybe a flash of Christ consciousness or whatever he deems that to be. But that lifting of the frequency is something that he references. And he also mentions these aliens, these NHI, these unbenevolent ones, malevolent ones, that have broken this prime directive or something that he suggests, which is essentially not to hurry on an under-civilized civilization, not to speed them along, give them technology and help them along. Well, apparently there's these four races that have broke that prime directive, which is where the Eisenhower deal comes in and all the rest of it. Is this ringing any bells with yourself?
I mean, it's just one example of many instances of that happening. Like you can even go back to the Anunnaki stories. They broke some covenants that shouldn't have been broken. Then, like, a lot of the stuff that we are dealing with aligns directly with the Book of Enoch.
Mm.
And so those types of experiences are happening to people right now. But when you get into the Nephilim and all like those stories, there are covenants that have been broken over and over and over again. And then what happens is there's a reset, and then the cycle starts over again.
Well, the depths of this, and this is one thing that he mentioned, was it was this Draco Reptilian
Yeah.
society, civilization. And the way that he says it is it's much the same as human beings. A lot of them are benevolent, but there are small factions who are not, which are just so happens to be the
That is
ones
accurate.
ruling elite and manipulating.
That is accurate. Yeah.
That's fair enough to say that then, Brad.
So I don't know anybody who has the level of NHI interactions as our group does. I mean, we've had so many of them. We have met reptilians. We've met reptilian hybrid beings.
Stop there. Come on, you have to go into that. Go into that first. Come on.
So what is something significant is happening here? Like, we understand our entire fabric of our reality and the nature of reality because we've had extreme NHI experiences. We use what we're doing when you use DMT as a tool is you're tuning to that frequency, and when you couple with it, that's where they live, and so you're tuning into their reality, and so they just start showing up, and they're major ones, but with eyes open, they are in your reality, and we've met reptilians, and the only ones that we have met are the good ones. They say things like they are breakaway. These are crazy stories, but this is all real. I would submit to a polygraph at any point in time, and so would anyone in my team about everything that I say.
6 months ago, Brad, I'd have said it was crazy too. But
yeah,
it's insane that it just brings you to this conclusion. Everything, if you do the research thoroughly, brings you in this direction. You can't help it.
It's because it's all because of consciousness. Everything is consciousness, and it's been something that they haven't been able to quantify, and the physicists don't want to talk about because they don't understand it. But what the discoveries that we're making with it is the primary field, and it is going to completely change our understanding of physics and how to fucking use it. Like, the stuff that we're going to be able to do because we understand the sandbox that we live in and how it's structured allows us to build things that are in alignment with it and not fighting it, which is what all of these advanced interdimensional beings already know, which is why their capabilities are so much further than ours.
I've got to ask you, Brad, and I'm going to shut up and let the other guys talk after this because I'm asking loads of questions. It's not my podcast.
It's all ours. It's all ours. Fine. Go for it.
If there's an impending change in this frequency, and MD Selig says it again, I'm sorry to keep referencing it, but he suggests that with the capabilities that humans are going to have, there's a potential for us being able to move freely between all 13 densities, maybe more. No, not just the others. But, the question I want to ask you, Brad, is if this is going to happen, what the hell are these governments doing with the narrative? What are they hoping to achieve with this narrative if this is going to happen? Because there's no way to control this thing.
I don't think that they know that they can't stop it. And so they want to hold on to the ability to weaponize it and use it for their technology like they have been since the 40s. And so you got that military industrial complex that is one of the systems that controls our government, wanting to maintain their hold on that. And so, like that, with what is going to unfold, this is the perfect time for them to initiate Project Bluebeam too. So I'm got my head on a swivel looking for that, and I fully expect that to take place here sometime this year. But
there's a suggestion, Dan will back me up on this, and no doubt Matty too, is with what's happening between the next 2 years, whatever's coming from the sea or protecting us is leaving, essentially, and that. And MD Selig refers to this group of Draco reptilians that will be essentially leaving the planet because they can't exist in our new consciousness, in our new frequency state. Is that about right? I mean, this
Uh,
is where the false flag is going to come from. Like, come with us. You know, they're going to propose themselves as these messiahs and saviors to take us off this planet. When the truth is, all we need to do is remain behind and not go with them. This is something that he suggests. Do you
where's he?
think
Is
we're
that
going to?
just is that speculation of his, or is he actually saying he has verifiable information?
Well, this is, I assume, is like the rest of us. He's just
Mhm.
connected a lot of dots, but
Oh, okay.
he's come from the
Okay.
intelligence space, and he's had access
So
to top secret documents and various other things. He's credible.
yeah,
Past, he's credible. You know,
I mean,
whether or
we
not he's
we
really done enough.
we're gonna. I want to tread lightly as we get into this because when we get into this side of the conversation, it gets very spiritual. Um, so our civilization is in a cycle. They happen every 12,000 years. The last one was the Younger Dryas. And so the duality that exists has spread to extremes that it can no longer maintain itself. And this is what happens. The same thing happened in the prior cycle. We can the stuff that we talk about with all of these beings that we interact with, Atlantis was for sure real. For sure. Lemuria, all of that. That was previous cycle. Um, Getting into this next one, so the way that it works, and the sun is a huge component of it, is you start to see a split happen within a dimension, and you're starting to see some evidence of that already. But the interactions that the sun has. So when you see the laser on DMT, you see those symbols. There are similar symbols that you can see in light with diffracted lenses on that are different, and those are light codes. And so the way that this reality is structured is kind of up like a software update sometimes from the sun, and these solar flares and all of these things that keep hitting us are a part of it, and that's causing all this geomagnetic issues and all of these things. But and that's in three-dimensional space. When you get into other dimensional space, which all of this stuff operates in, and the stuff that we've learned how to do with the sun and the moon would blow your mind when we're connected to what we're doing. Like it is mind blowing. But the way that that works is there's a dimensional split that's a frequency sweep. And so you're starting to, like every major religion's prophets, end times prophecies are all coming together at the same time. Even the Hopi Indians, like the evidence is overwhelming, just nobody's really wanting to talk about it. And so when you talk about there's a frequency sweep that'll happen, and if you're above an internal frequency, is how you shift. And there's going to be incredible things that happen in that next cycle. But then we're talking about end times prophecies. The other side of that is kind of where you see things are heading right now with cataclysms starting. And so we're getting into all of it coming together and connecting at the same time for that reason. And that's kind of what he's talking about with the.
So just before we get into that part of it, Bigelow said a few years, probably a decade ago now, that there's it's very pessimistic about the human future and stuff like that, and that there's I think it was remote viewers they couldn't see past a certain date,
Mhm.
and he
Yeah.
says that they don't think there's anything we can do about it.
So you get into
You know,
Project Looking Glass saying the same thing. When you get past 2012, they couldn't see anything. But that also lines up with the Mayan calendar at the end of it, where everybody was expecting the some cataclysm to happen all at once, but it's not how that works. It was the start of a clock and the start of a sequence. And you start seeing the dots starting to connect, especially looking back, and you can see where everything's starting to head. That was the beginning of it, and it's a cycle. It's like this little cycle, and we're in the middle of it. But that's why, because technically they couldn't see past that because there's after that point there's nothing they could do to change it.
so he's gone
Just
from
make an
nuts and bolts.
observation.
Sorry, he's gone from nuts and bolts to NDEs and consciousness, and I think that was partly to do with his son died, and
Mhm.
he went into the consciousness side and went to know if people lived after death and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's after death, it's in the fourth dimension. People who are mediums and that just can naturally, they're just born and they naturally connect to that density. We don't have any interaction with it. Everything we're dealing with is fifth and above. Um, but yeah.
Can I just make one observation? You mentioned 2012 being the beginning of a clock. 2012 was the year that Chris was approached by the lady. That
Yeah.
can't be a coincidence, right?
The coincidences don't exist at all. There's no such thing.
Absolutely.
If you think there's a coincidence, you're just missing a signal that you're supposed to pay attention to
I
because
don't
it's a simulation and it's how it fucking works.
I don't know if there was a plan to go in a certain order with this conversation. I think there was, but we've gone balls deep straight into it, which I'm happy with because
I
with the
apologize.
people's channels,
Yeah.
we want to ask the question that everyday folk want to know and stuff like that. So with what's going on at the minute with Iran and the prophecy, potentially it's been a prophecy and stuff,
Yeah.
and you've got the military saying to the troops,
Mhm.
sorry, the sergeant saying to the troops, "This is Armageddon, it's God's war" and stuff like that. What do you think's happening here?
So, I mean, you're watching prophecy be fulfilled, even if it's intentional. So you get into it's complicated. You're seeing war for a number of different reasons. One, we know for sure is to distract from the Epstein files. Two, Iran doesn't have a central bank. Neither did Venezuela, neither does Cuba. Like if you start looking at the last seven countries, you're just watching them start getting picked off to install this. It's all connected. And so when you get into, there's also stuff that's going to be buried in Iran that they want access to. More ancient sites that have unique things buried there. But we're starting to see it all come together. You're starting to see talks of the third temple being built. They're actually prefabricating all of it off site so that all they have to do is erect it when something's going to happen to the what's already on the rock right now. Um, yeah, like it's all over. It is prophecy, even in Mecca. Their end times prophecy said that time will cast a shadow on Mecca, and there's a giant clock tower that just finished being built that casts a shadow over the entire city. It's just you're seeing the little dots of it everywhere, and like even the Hopi Indians said that their neighbor with the red hat would rule. I mean, just little bits of nuggets, pieces here all together. You're seeing a great awakening happening. You're seeing supernatural things become more and more common. You're seeing disclosure of aliens and all of that start to take place. Like it's just all, everything's about to shift and everything, our understanding of our reality is about to change.
Is there different layers of this simulation that you can access? Like, is there just multiple layers that you can access if you was able to do that, whether you've got it naturally or you use the DMT?
So,
Sort of
yeah,
what I
kind
mean,
of,
can you
that's basically
control
what
it?
you're doing. You can, yeah. We've completely mastered how to do it, like completely mastered
So if I
it.
just it's a question, so if I was to take DMT now and went into
Mhm.
it, I would not be able to control it. I'd just be like
No,
overwhelmed, I'm guessing. But if
not
somebody
necessarily.
said,
It's not overwhelming. You're still yourself. Like you completely control. You're still Matt. You're still your body. You feel healed. Like you. It's a very healing experience. And it's 5 minutes, but it'll be the most profound experience of your life. Um, but yeah, you're going to go for an experience. So there's two different experiences with eyes open and eyes closed. Eyes closed, there's no boundaries. You're going to see the most incredible stuff. And when you can hear frequencies, you can differentiate frequencies you can't normally hear. Like if you're put some really good music on and listen to it and go for a ride, it's the most incredible sounds you'll ever hear. But with eyes open, it'll be nothing, just your normal space, then all of a sudden it'll snap and then it completely shifts. It's all of your stuff, but it's just a completely different style. Like I had once, like there's no boundaries to it. So, but that's the level that we're trying to look for is once that moment hits, that's when you can interact with the beings that are there. And so we try and hover around that level and maintain these conversations. So we could sit there and talk to them for 45 minutes to an hour.
is there any danger to doing that? Could something happen to you in that realm?
As that would be negative, like
Nothing can
as far as
happen.
being hurt or like physically hurt.
Well, I don't
So,
know. However,
well, just for the sake of clarity, like thousands of times that we have done this, there's no way it's impossible to abuse. There's a built-in mechanism that keeps that from happening. It's non-addictive and it's completely natural. Um, And if anything, I've gotten either smarter or for sure wiser. It feels like your IQ is increased, and that's consistent for all of us that this has happened to. Our ability to understand advanced mathematics and information has significantly increased. And I think I told you before we started, like this, after what happened to me, it feels like Phenomenon, the movie with John Travolta. Like we're just absorbing information.
Brad, do you
And
get similar results from psilocybin?
yeah. So when you take psilocybin and it converts to psilocin, which is 4-ACO NM dimethyltryptamine. So half of the molecule is DMT. What is happening there is that you're accessing the same realm, but there is an ancient spirit that is attached to it, which is where the mushroom part comes in, and that's why it gets that earthy feel to it. But you're interacting, but there's a different perspective to it because of the mushroom. Which that's even like 2 years ago, I would have told you that chakras were bullshit and that's just something you found at a yoga shop, like at some spiritual gift shop. And it's not. We can feel all of them and we can actually use them because of what's happened. Like those are real. Those are very, very real.
It's
And then
interesting that you mentioned the increase in IQ as well, in feeling
yeah.
that. That is
Oh,
interesting to mention that, because that's
so
distinct.
it is distinct. But what we're starting to understand is that the people this is happening to, we're starting to remember stuff from previous lifetimes. And so it's more of a remembrance, but it feels like you're learning. But you're just like I've got like a guy in our group who's he's unbelievably nice. This we met because the universe kind of like because I talk about this stuff on TikTok, it's kind of like a signal flare. I get people all the time being like, I'm having this crazy experience happen. I don't know what's happening. You're probably going to think I'm crazy, but I understand everything that's happening to them. This was kind of one of those situations. He saw what I was putting out there and he chimed in. Didn't graduate high school, former pastor, worked at Home Depot, but his depth of understanding of quantum mechanics is absurd. To hear him talk about it, and this is not just him, this is happening to multiple people in our group. Like we're just normal people that now have a complete understanding of our reality. It's it's a perpetual state of astonishment. We're coming in, like in December, I announced that we had all of the layers of consciousness down to the quantum math, and then this week, we call it the consciousness harmonic constant. So last year, I got a nudge that I needed to get our information to Terrence Howard, and he's hard to get in contact with. But I got with his partner that kind of acts as his gatekeeper, and I'm trying to. It's kind of hard to explain to people how we're getting our information and then take it seriously. But I was able to pull some of our math and derive something that they were looking for, but they had just found this exact ratio. Hadn't published it. And so it's extremely specific. And for us, he gets it through advanced geometry that he's being given in his dreams. That is what is happening to him. And so he found that from that. We found it in our equations that we get from the DMT and NDE space. And for that to match is significant. But we've been able to find this ratio that physics doesn't know exists. And the only possible way that it could exist is if we are not in an open and expanding universe and it's closed, which it is, because it operates like a simulation. There is a boundary to it. The expansion that we're seeing is actually just an oscillation of expansion. It will contract. But so this harmonic constant, then we're kind of being nudged that we need to see how this lays out on the earth. And so we mapped 419 ancient sacred sites over the earth and then overlaid the spirals that this harmonic constant creates. And it accounted for so many of these ancient sites. They're laid along these spirals because that's the energetic geometry of our planet that is naturally there. Is what would be the actual ley lines. You're starting to see where those are. We can map those out now. And we've been able to bounce it off of that. And so when we ran the numbers, we a Monte Carlo, or I don't want to get into the testing, but like 10,000 iterations of where these spirals could be and how they line up. It came back with the result is 9.05 sigma, which means it's 9 orders of magnitude beyond random chance that this is predictive and that this is accurate. The Higgs boson particle, the God particle that CERN verified, which took 50 years to develop and the largest machine ever made, was verified at 5. And so we're almost double what it took to verify that. But that we find this ratio inside the brain, inside sacred geometry, inside quantum physics, in the DMT space, because that harmonic is what you are coupling to, and you're tuning yourself to with DMT. That is what is happening. We then find it. That same ratio aligns all of our ancient sites, and it answers the question of why they're built where they're built. And then we were also nudged that we needed to look and see how it interacts with the computational makeup of the partitioning of dark matter, dark energy, and matter. And we predicted that it would match, and it matched. It was off by 0.004%. But that makes it, we're starting to understand, I would say in the next couple of weeks, we're going to understand what dark matter and dark energy is. But that we can find it on scales like that. That means it exists, and it's extremely important.
So are you trying to? So my question was going to be, how, without using DMT and stuff, and that's not going to be proof to people. How can we prove that we are actually, or disprove that we're in a simulation? How is there? I've seen recently a laser experiment thing where they were looking through it, and but again, you have to be on DMT to see what they're seeing. Is there a way to do it without any of that?
There is, yeah. So that's Danny Goler's laser experiment. His discovery was a huge part of what allowed us to kind of leapfrog it into where we've taken this now. Thousands of people have seen those symbols. We understand what the symbols are. What they're seeing is a physical veil. But what you're doing is you're tuning yourself to be able to see that. We have an experiment designed right now that will tune the environment because we know the math behind it and what's happening that will allow those symbols to be able to be seen without DMT, because it's what matters is frequency. And so you're tuning the laser to that specific harmonic ratio, and it will allow those to emerge without needing to be on DMT. But we are working on designing a camera to be able to capture it because it's in the ultraviolet light range. But what's even crazier too is different wavelengths of laser. So if green or blue or red reveals different information, it's continual. Some of them have more information than others at different wavelengths, which is crazy.
Brad, what you've just mentioned there with accessing these astral planes, if you want to call them that, via means other than DMT, you've mentioned harmonics and frequency. There's evidence in ancient sites, so there's one in Ireland and I know there's one in Malta as well, of having these caverns, essentially, these cavernous buildings that would resonate that particular frequency. And this is essentially where they found these lecterns, where a body or a person would lie there and access these astral planes via those frequencies, the sound plane, with the cavern built specifically for that resonance. That's evidence, isn't it, that's been suppressed from us, that the ancients had that knowledge of being able to access the dimensions from using frequencies. For sure.
So, you see evidence of that all over, even the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid. Like those are initiation points. The Rosicrucians were using it for a long time for their initiations because they know how to use it. And frequency and resonance is a part of it. It's quantum resonance. Even accessing parts of the pyramids as far as Rosicrucian records go, which are going to be very important as things unfold. But there are certain things that they hum that would allow, in certain tones, to allow things to open up. And you see evidence of that all over the world. When you get into these cathedrals that have these beautiful stained glass, looks like a mandala, those are cymatic patterns. It's giving you the frequency that's needed for that cathedral to do something different. Like it's like a marker. If you can figure out what the frequency is that creates that pattern, you should be able to do something with what the original intent of that being built was. There's a part of our history that's been whitewashed. I don't want to get into it today. We're starting to see more and more evidence of it, that there was our civilization at one point understood the harmonics and the frequencies, and it's been like erased.
Well, Tim Hogan, he's a grandmaster of the Templars. He was on Wi-File's basement recently, and he openly said that the Templar, they know they've got this knowledge, and they've actually got some of this technology that enables. So they know all about this. The question is,
do.
Well, go on, Brad.
Yeah. So there's a reason that in World War II that the Nazis were trying to find relics. They're not just bullshit artifacts that are just decorative. They legitimately had powers. And this, we're talking about artifacts that are coming from a time, like we were talking earlier, where the veil didn't exist and more divine interactions were happening. And you get into like Nimrod and Gilgamesh. Dan, I said I wouldn't talk about that.
Project High Jump, right? That ties into that.
Well, later on down the road, but yes, and there we understand some of that stuff too, like the Nazis going down there, having those interactions. There is a lot of stuff under Antarctica, and it's kind of intense. There's a lot going on down there that they do not want us to know about. Yeah, and that was going to be from a prior pole shift.
And did the Nazis know about DMT and about this?
So until the 50s, we didn't know we could vaporize it and smoke it. So it was really only found in South American tribes and that shaman realm. And that it's been used there for many years. It's the active part of ayahuasca. Until the 50s, then they realized that it could be vaporized, but then it was outlawed as a part of when they made all of those psychedelics Schedule 1 during Vietnam. It was lumped into all of that. And so they're saying that to be Schedule 1, it means it has no medicinal value. And so they're starting to find mushrooms are in there, MDMA is in there, but all of those they're finding more and more now has extreme medicinal value. Like Ibogaine cures opioid addiction with one treatment, and over 90% of the people that take it, and it changes their life. Like all of this, like this isn't stuff that's detrimental. This has changed our lives. We're better people for going down this path. Like it has made us better humans. Like we're so much more full of love and so much more in alignment and coherence with what we're supposed to be. Like I thought my entire life that hippies were lazy, and it's not. They've just had these experiences and they're more in alignment with where we're supposed to be, that the materialism of life doesn't matter to them. They don't give a shit about it because they know it doesn't matter. And so it's just completely shifted my perspective on how to navigate this reality.
Can I ask you a question as well?
It happens to everybody, though, doesn't it?
Can I just ask a question? So there's a lot of things going on at the minute with the Epstein files and Baal and occults and stuff. How does occults and stuff fit into the simulation? And is there evil things that you can summon from that dimension?
So if you look back in history and you see stories of them worshiping the moon and all of these things and all of these deities, it's easy to underestimate what was going on there and think that they were just kind of uncivilized and kind of idiots, and didn't know what they were doing. And the moon, let's go worship it. That's not the case. They were having more mystical experiences because they were more connected to that than we are today. We've been manipulated out of it. And we're starting to see more and more evidence of that. At this point, it's obvious. But so the reason these rituals work, and so back around 1915, you start getting into Aleister Crowley and the things that he was capable of doing.
Lamb.
Yeah, with Lam. Well, I mean, like if you dig into his life, it is dark, but it is fascinating.
Yeah.
like once I started learning about it, I couldn't stop learning about it. I went for days just absorbing everything I could because it felt like it was the opposite of what was happening to us. And so, but you start looking at those patterns, and there's stories like that he opened a Pandora's box that he couldn't close because he was reckless, and that's why he was thrown out of the Golden Dawn. And these mystery schools have known how to do all of this for so long, um, but they've been hiding, guarding the information. And so you get into the occult stuff, and that's spread. Like you see his influence over the royal family, even in England. You see his influence over Hollywood as he moved to the United States. He's hanging out with L. Ron Hubbard, and then Jack Parsons that started NASA. They're all doing extreme occult practices, and it is getting very dark. And you've got one of those guys that has started our JPL, we worked at JPL and started NASA. And it's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down.
That takes me to just to follow on from that. So James Fox said it was replayed the other day that he was told this is 1,000 times worse than anything on the planet. If this was to be brought to public's attention, basically bring people to the knees, the belief systems would all change. Do you believe that?
Are you talking about UFOs
Just no, like
or the
the
occult
reality,
part of it?
and it's all connected, isn't it?
It is all, yeah.
So it's the reality. So if we was to find out that people are saying we can't handle the truth, right? So we'll look at it from the UFO side of it. Then you're into the, but think you're coming along the lines of it's all connected, and I'm starting to think it's all connected. Could we handle it, or is it certain people that won't be able to handle it? And those people, there's more of them on this planet.
The thought is if aliens exist and that comes out public, that it's going to disprove religion, and that there's going to be extreme fallout from that. And it would be ontological shock if that's how it is presented. That if it's just UFOs and aliens or exist, and that's the end of the story, which is probably going to be, as far as publicly, that's destabilizing. But when you start to understand the consciousness connection part to it and how that connects to the spiritual side of it, what it does is it's going to be confusing for religious people, but it's going to reinforce part of it, and it's going to clarify the rest of it. So the manipulation and all of that stuff that has been there we're going to understand more and more of what the intent was, or what shouldn't have been there, or like the Book of Enoch is extremely important, and that should have been in the Bible. And so like trying to get all of the people it'll get everybody on the same page. It will be a lot to process.
I'm not religious, but I have read the Book of Enoch because one of my followers sent it to me, and I know about the I didn't even know the Anunnaki was in it. That's how ignorant I was to the religious side of things. The Watchers, the fallen angels, explain that, and the purpose of those and the connection with the simulation. Are they monitoring? Are they like monitoring us? Are these what we're seeing in the sky? Is this what was wrote in these books when the lights were following Mary or whatever and stuff like that with the
Well,
UFOs?
with the stuff with Mary, that kind of stuff, it could be. It could. So the way that these beings travel, and kind of, if they don't have a craft, they don't need a craft to do this. And I don't know what we've seen some with and without them. Most of them without. But when you see them in our reality, they show up with orbs of light because they have access. It's an energetic vehicle. Like you can create one now. And how we can use sacred geometry to create Merkaba or Merkaba, however you want to pronounce it. And then we use that to go astral. That's how this happens. You're seeing the same thing for them. And that's just kind of how it manifests with the orbs of light. But that also, the sphere network is extremely old.
So
Patrick Jackson.
are you with Patrick Jackson on that?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I'd love to get you
Absolutely.
and Patrick on then, and you two have a discussion, and I'll host it and stuff.
Well, we're starting to find out that that's why they're seeing all those frequencies come out of Skinwalker Ranch when they're digging. That's evidence of to support his theory.
The
For
thing
sure.
that got me into the orb stuff, like, was the only experience I've ever had. It's on 3 occasions, and when I was at work, someone said to me, he thinks he's from another planet and stuff, so we all thought it was cuckoo. And he said, you can summon these things. And he'd be showing people at work, he'd have these laser things, and people would experience it. And it was like, you know what? We think he's mad, but we're actually seeing things when he's doing it.
Yeah.
So I messaged him because he works on a different shift to me. So I messaged him and I said, listen, people are saying I need to speak to you. So I spoke to him. He said, yeah, you can summon these things. I'm like, how? And this was before Psionics were mentioned, before Sky, which is about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I was told about it. You can use the people of the light, he said. And he said you can throw your out, you just throw your location if they're in the vicinity or they're around and stuff that they will show themselves as a light. And on 3 occasions, 3 times it's gone 1 5 seconds, 1 5 seconds. No satellite, no plane. I can debunk that with the apps I have on my phone and stuff like that. I could not explain it. I could not explain, even to the point where I was trying to get my kids to do it. On the 3 occasions I was sober. On the other occasions when I've tried it, I've been under the influence of alcohol and it's not worked. So I think that I can only do it when I am sober in thought. It's not worked every time, but it's worked 3 times. And I've spoken about it in lives, and that's something, that's my only experience. I know I had other experience when I was a kid, but I'm not getting into that.
Well, there's all
Okay,
this
so-
stuff happening here. Just going to mention Patrick while you mentioned it. He's coming up on the 4th of April, Dan and Matty. He's staying at mine and we're going to do these investigations. But anything that Brad can mention on that, we should try it while we're all together.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, you get into the Skywatchers, that you're getting it, the same thing they're trying to do with CE5 protocol for Stephen Greer, and they're having success with it. And the way that you're doing it is that you're projecting your location through the consciousness field, and they're already tapped into that. I mean, that's how they move around. They're much more connected to it than we are. When if the higher your internal frequency, which that gets into the Joe Dispenza conversation, which is very, very valid. So doing the things that you enjoy, being happy, love, those, being authentic, those raise your frequency, and they can sense that. And so alcohol lowers your frequency, and so it's basically muting your signal, and so they're probably not going to interact with you when you're drinking. And so when you're like on DMT, you're almost forcing coherence. So based on all the math that we have, we were given these equations and kind of told what to measure. We have an EEG band that you can put on, and then it runs through our algorithms to understand, and it measures your internal coherence with the consciousness field and do it in real time. And so when you're using, if you ohm, like you watch it jump significantly, and that kind of ties into all of these ancient systems that have been in place for so long with all the monks and all of these yogis that have been doing all this stuff for a long time.
Right. Just for the sake of the casual viewer, all of them things that you can get on YouTube where it says it plays a certain resonance and you can sit there and listen to it. Are they even worth listening to? Do they help in any way?
Yeah, they do help. There's a lot of them that aren't at the actual frequency, which I think is bizarre. You need to know if you're using the right one. So the Skywatcher team has their dog whistle, and a large portion of that are specific celestial frequencies. You get into 432, 963, and those align to different chakras. They're projecting that, and it's got a breathing pattern, an oscillating pattern in it too. But they're turning that on, and that's helping them bring in more UAPs. That has been a big deal for them. But the crazy part about it is you don't have to turn it up. It just has to be on. So just having those celestial frequencies near you and available are what is increasing that signal, because it's affecting your field. Now that we can read coherence with that EEG and that prototype that we built, and it works incredibly. It looks like you should be able to design it to, based off what it's reading, it'll adjust what frequencies you're hearing and induce those enlightenment states. But then also frequency, like with the Monroe Institute, like the gateway tapes, those are forcing out of body experiences, because you're getting two separate frequencies that are slightly off in each ear. It causes your hemispheres of your brain to sync. And when you do that in a relaxed state, and they walk you how to do it, your body falls asleep, but your brain is still awake, and you can, no joke, leave your body. And it's something that more and more people are doing. There's recently a guy named Ethan on TikTok that had a dream of how to improve it. and it took from 2 tones to 7 tones, and it's a whole lot more powerful. And based off our understanding what we're discovering with these equations and all of that, we understand why that's happening. But this is legit. Like, you can now, we're going to be able to induce these mystical and altered states.
Brad, has any of your guys, has anybody physically come after you lot yet for any of this? Yeah, so I was going to say,
it's going to be edited anyway, so none of that. It'll look like a genius when it's done. Dan won't know what he's doing.
Dan ain't got a Scooby Doo, mate.
I was going to try and invite him back, but fuck it, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Asleep.
So
fell asleep sitting up. Anyway, what I was going to say was, it's seemingly you and your team, you've got access to this realm whenever you want. Have you guys gone across there in search of knowledge or information on what's going on Earth and the direction things are going in, who may be controlling and pulling strings? Or do you just go across there sort of just to have a look and experience it? Do you go across with intent to figure things out?
We operate this like a science experiment. We are actively seeking out information and understanding. All of us are, and we're refining even how we navigate it. Like, when I say we've mastered how to do this, we have mastered it, absolutely mastered it, to the point we can teach it without. Go ahead.
If you've created a big picture now, and I imagine you have done at this stage, just if you, I mean, just shoot from the hip if you like, but what's the big picture? What's going on? Like, what's happening in the big picture in the next year and a half, 2 years? I mean, what the hell is happening?
Yeah. We are at the end of our civilization cycle, and there's going to be wild things that start happening. It is a reset event that is happening. So like we talked about earlier, all the end time prophecy is here, but it's going to be a little bit more bizarre. There's going to be NHI and all sorts of weird stuff that are involved in it. And so
I want to take it a bit dark. I want to take it into a darker area because, I'm always trying to push this because I know it's going on because I speak to someone prominent that's in the background trying to do good things on this. So I'm going to ask you, Brad, what the fuck is going on with the children?
So when you get into the achrone conversation, that is legit. And so
and the psionic side of it as well. Are them two, are they used for both purposes?
Yes, but I feel like it is more ritual based than it is psionic.
MD Selig seems to think that there is a legitimate off-world organ harvesting, body harvesting operation going on with these Draco reptilians. Apparently, the human body and what we are fetches a high price on the black market, so to speak. These missing people are going off-world. And that seems to be coming to an end as well in the next 2 years with whatever's leaving.
I don't know if they're going off world because these dimensions are nested on top of us. I mean, they could be, but there are stargates that exist. You're starting to see evidence of those in Hawaii. Like, there's all sorts of different ways to either be here in a different density or go somewhere else. I'm not quite sure.
So
the years,
but they are
2031, Brad. What does Earth look like in your vision?
I wish. Well, here, I don't know. So we're not getting enough information in that far of an advance to know how to answer that. I can understand stuff 6 months from now.
Would they tell you though, Brad? That's the thing. If we're part of the simulation, are there things that they just won't open up and tell you anyway?
Yeah, so they're really coy about it. So like we'll ask questions like, did Jesus die on the cross? And they're like, he ascended. And I was like, that doesn't answer my question. And they're like, that's all you need to know. And I was like, okay. Like, all right.
I've got this funny imagination, right? And I've got this image of these people in interdimensional world eating the dinner, and all of a sudden a fucking human being appears. He's like, "How the fuck are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I just took some DMT. You're not supposed to be here." And then all of a sudden, other people started coming in and trying to find all the little secrets and stuff like that. And
yeah, you hear stories about that all the time. You surprise them. We've surprised quite a few, and they've surprised us too.
Are you
Yeah,
supposed to
there's
be doing this? That's the thing I'm trying to get at. Is this like a cheat that where they're like, you really shouldn't be doing this, but you're doing it. We can't stop you, and
no, they can stop you. They can
can't.
shut you out all day long if they want to.
Even
Yeah,
if you was on
absolutely.
DMT, they could shut you out.
Yeah, like I went through a period of 6 months where it doesn't matter how much I took, I could not access that. We call it being locked out. And it's almost like periods of integration from stuff that you've learned. Or there's many stories of people that go into the space and they're like, no, you're not allowed here. Like you're not ready for this. And then like they're kind of spooks them and they don't ever try it again. Like
Do
there's
those
mechanism like
entities, do they have
hmm?
emotions?
Oh, absolutely. And some of them are hilarious. Some of them are really funny. So, some of them are rude and short.
Do any of them have empathy for what's happening on Earth? When I imagine you tell them,
No, because it's not real.
no.
The only thing that matters is your soul here. And so they know that what happens here is just an experience for your soul.
Okay.
None of the pain and shit that happens here
Yeah,
matters
essentially,
on that side of
they're just a lot more learned than us, aren't they? Spiritually.
it.
Oh,
Massively. Oh, yes, massively.
we're like
They're
babies.
on different frequencies. Yeah.
So is
But
it just like
I mean, they're,
sorry, it's just like a training ground then for us?
yeah, absolutely. 100%. And it's one of the hardest ones you can choose. There's a book that has that explains after you die. Dr. Michael Newton was a hypnotherapist that was just randomly helping people realize that he could ask a certain type of questions and start getting information from people's past lives and information in between lives. So he started asking all of these questions and it was getting responses and stories that with extreme consistency. So over 7,000 people, he puts this book out called Journey of Souls that explains what happens in between lives. And Dolores Cannon, who's going to be really important, did the same thing and came to the same conclusions. She got more information about the future and what's happening now. Her books are extremely accurate at explaining what is happening. So if you want to know what happens after you die, those Dr. Michael Newton's book has the right answers, and it's
Find it
beautiful.
fascinating. I love the NDEs. I've studied a lot of them. I think they're incredible. The
Yeah.
question, when you go into this astral plane and you speak with these entities, I mean, I assume they must have also gone through a 3D reality at some stage, if that's the motion of a soul to move through the dimensions and learn.
It depends on it depends on who I don't know. That's a good question. I've never asked that actually.
I'd be interested to know if they had
What's
themselves experienced a third dimension like we have.
so, but just a point of clarity. The astral plane, look, eyes closed, you're navigating astrally, but with eyes open, they're in your space. Like they might as well be sitting across the table from you, and you're just sitting there asking them and questions and talking to them. When you get to that point of gnosis that we had unlocked, that started being there are beings that are around you and around Matt, and like you have them, everyone has them around them. And so there's a combination. Sometimes they're angels, sometimes they're beings, but you have guardians and guides that are there with you all the time. So that's what was happening. Once this happened, you'd see them every time. And that happened for everybody. We see the same ones over and over. So we get to build these relationships with them. And it's like you can go in there and just like get guidance on life. Now, like if I want to, being a polymath and having all of this information, I annoy them because I ask so many really complicated questions. But like it's basically them guiding you throughout life. I'm telling you, man, when we start following this journey, it just starts to unfold. Everything becomes pretty obvious of what's going on. You understand why bad things happen in your life because you're here to learn from them. You're not here to survive them. You're to learn a lesson. And if you have something in your life that continues to repeat that you don't like, but you keep making the same responsive decision based off what is happening, you're not learning what you're supposed to learn. If you want it to stop, you need to figure out what that is, because that's the when it stops and moves. Your journey moves on.
Love that. Yeah, it's really great to hear you say that because that's a conclusion I've come to myself.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a lot of turmoil this last year. I think I've gone through this incredible steep learning curve of going from basically being a sheep, one of the men in the crowd, to going from curious to my God, really, really fast.
Hmm.
He's been sinking his teeth into this for 27 years. I'm sure he doesn't mind saying that. But this is all very fast and furious for me. But it's good to hear you validate my own thoughts on what's going on, essentially, and what
Yeah.
comes next. And this is something I want to say as well. I want to ask you. I don't feel like this. I completely feel fearless. I've got no fear of
Yeah.
anything because of what I know now. Is it the same for you and your group as
Yeah.
well? The zero?
Absolutely. So when you understand the nature of your reality and your place in it, and you understand why all of this exists, you understand why you start understanding how to navigate this with peace and strength and clarity. Once that happens, you know that there is life after death, and you know what to experience. You go read that book. I'm telling you, those are the right answers. And when you start understanding that that is what comes after, there's no reason to have any fear at all. Like I have zero fear, which is why I openly talk about this stuff. I don't like you. If you disagree with anything that I say, I don't care. I know what's happened here, and I have a certainty with the words that come out of my mouth. Um, it doesn't bother me. Like I don't like if anybody's negative about anything that I say, I don't care because I legitimately know how all this shit works.
There's a
And
pattern though,
like
isn't
to
there?
the
Like
point,
too many people are saying what you're saying, so they can't all be nuts. It's either this drug that you're taking is giving everybody this weird experience, and it's just a one-off thing, or there is
it
actually
is
something
not.
going on. It
Yeah.
does seem there's something going on. What I want to know is,
Same.
I lost my father 13 years ago. Is there a way that I could communicate with him in that world? Is there a way that I can
Not
do
based off
anything?
my experience, I would say no. Now, so your father like that would be in the fourth. I don't have nobody in our group has the ability to tap into that one. It's like we skip over it.
So
Um,
just like what happens then beyond like, did they go on to do? Could he be back on planet Earth
for
again?
could be on planet Earth, could be in another star system, could be in another dimension. But this is the hardest one.
I'm guessing he would be back here because he didn't learn from his fucking mistakes. So,
Well, there's plenty of people that think that if you don't learn what you're supposed to learn, you just recycle back in it. But
it's
Yeah,
probably
I
yeah.
don't know about that.
he probably recycled into my daughter because she's fucking evil.
Well, I
Probably
mean,
recycled into her.
like but there's so one of the more beautiful stories in that book, Journey of Souls. It talks so it puts the person under hypnosis and then it starts basically communicating with them from a past lifetime. And they were talking, they got this child died early, young. And so Dr. Newton had asked, what's the point of choosing a life like that? There's no way you can get the experiences that you need. And
Yeah,
the response was that the lesson that needed to be learned there wasn't for me, it was for my parents.
Oh wow.
I needed to be there to help them learn a lesson. And then the incarnation that happened next was when they had a baby again. So it got to live a full life with his family, but also teach them a very valuable lesson about loss of a child as
which
a
I've
part of theirs.
experienced at 17 years old. We was due to have a baby. Um, the something had gone. I think the bowel had come out during one of the scans or something.
Mm,
And as the scans went on, they went, it's just we can do a stitch and we can put it in. And then this, as it got to like 6 months, 7 months, it twisted to stop a bit of the blood circulation to the brain, and they went, it's probably gonna have some learning difficulties. So I was like, fine, that's fine. I'm 17 at the time, and then it got to a stage, went to Sheffield, and they went, it's no life, no life. So we had to make the decision. So like, basically, she was due to give birth, and they just had to terminate the baby and give birth to a dead baby. And the first experience I had as a father was holding
yeah.
my daughter, which was a girl. We didn't know it was a boy or a girl. We named her Sam after the mother at the time, and or it would have been called Matt if it was a boy. And then that was my first experience as a fucking father. So yeah, if that's
I mean,
I learned.
there's a chance that one of your kids now is that same soul. That is legit.
I have 5 kids and 3 daughters, so possibly yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm gonna tell you, it's reading that book after learning the things that we had learned. from doing all of this really brought me a lot of peace, especially when it comes to loss, understanding why those things happen and understanding what happens after. It, once you start understanding all of this, it really it's almost, it feels powerful and knowledge to be able to just not be a victim of this reality anymore, because you know it's not going to last. You know how to navigate it. You know where everything is going to head. You would have known all of this before you picked this lifetime to
Brad, for
begin
the
with.
average person that may just be swinging by this episode and just stumbled upon it, maybe I don't know why they're an hour into it, but maybe they are. But maybe we could clip it up, Matty. But Brad, for the average person just swinging by that maybe just isn't that familiar with any of this stuff that we're talking about here, is like what can you say to those people to get them engaged? What is it that is so important about this subject that they need to drop what they're doing and listen to it and get involved and start learning and raising the frequency quick?
We talk about the learning, like learning. We've been talking about the darker parts, like learn how to learn from things that have negatively happened to you. You, we, our society has been told we need to fit a certain mold, and that's not the way this is supposed to work. You are a fingerprint of a much, much bigger thing, and that you get certain feelings throughout your day and throughout your life that are supposed to be signals. The things that make you excited are those are the things that you're supposed to do. The things that make you scared and fearful are those are things you're not supposed to do. And if you were to just do that and focus on the things that make you excited and happy, if you have a choice between two things, choose the one that, even if it's just a little bit more happy. Now, don't go, like, you still have responsibilities and 3D stuff to do, but focus on those things, and that causes your internal frequency to raise. The way that the universe responds as that happens is that it wants to match frequency in your life. So as you raise that frequency, and then the universe starts responding by bringing things that are into your life that are in alignment with that, and you're going to be more, you're developing your authentic self. And when you can live as your authentic self, and the people that are around you at that point, it's so much more fulfilling than fighting all this negative stuff. Like, if you can focus on ways to just increase your internal frequency, the universe responds, and the way it responds is absolutely incredible. You're still going to have challenges. You're still going to have things that you have to learn and go through. But when you can live your life from that perspective, it is completely different than not knowing how any of this works. Just that one thing.
That takes all of the complications off the table, doesn't it? The religious arguments, the political arguments,
Yeah.
the social arguments, the economical arguments. Essentially, what
Right.
you're saying there is wipe them away, stop focusing on them, because their
Correct.
negative emotions essentially are tied to those things.
Yeah. Do you ever watch the news all day because some, like, war's going on right now, and then you feel like shit? Like you're mentally cloudy, and like that's it's the effects of that. Like you're like, when we get into stuff that manipulates us. So we talked about the elites use rituals. They also understand how sigils and symbols work. And so sigils and like symbolism that we think is for marketing in our reality, in the other dimensions, has weight on the metaphysical part of you. So years ago, there was a lady, she looked like a total Karen. She's explaining the symbols that are on, like, Monster energy drinks, and like how negative and satanic they are. And I was like, look at this lady, like, she just seems crazy. But after learning what we've learned, that is not unintentional. That is for sure intentional, because that stuff carries weight on your soul that you don't know. And we're starting, like, we have overwhelming amounts of evidence and experiences and stories that explain this. But like, even the food that you eat, if you're eating meat from a factory farm where the animals are being abused and it's disgusting, that and these dimensions are nested on top of all of this. That negativity and that lower frequency state that that animal is in, when you eat it, you metaphysically absorb some of that energy. So like there's all of these systems. You're going to find when the next wave of the Epstein files come out, there's going
I
to
was
be
just
more
going
and
to get to
more.
that. Are you going to say there's some dark shit here with eating?
It's this, oh, for sure. And okay, and so I know where your head's at already. Um, so
You're way,
there's a
way-
concept that they use to bypass the karmic blowback from the dark things that they're doing. And it's called Carnelian law. And the way it works, as long as they put it out in public view, it allows them to bypass being punished for doing all this dark stuff. And so we're starting to see more and more evidence. Like Monsters Inc.
I was
looks like a
just going to say
confession
that,
tape.
Brad. I was just
It
going to say
is
Monsters Inc.
when
is
you get
horrifying.
into Disney, all of the like growing up, I remember like, oh, they're talking about a penis being in the mermaid, Little
Yeah,
Mermaid.
well, I
I'm like,
don't know if you've seen. I don't know if you
no
watched my
way.
live watch along. I've done 2 live watch alongs over the last week of Fall of the Cabal. It's a 10-part
Yeah,
thing. It shows Disney. It goes into everything. It's in plain
yeah,
sight. And she ended up committing suicide in 2023. And
yeah. Well, I
there's a
mean,
part
have you
two. There's a
did
part
you
two I
tie
hadn't
him
seen.
into did you tie him into Bohemian Grove?
Yes, it's gone into it all.
Yeah,
But he gone
yeah,
into all the occults, gone
yeah.
into the children's stuff. It's not. It got copyrighted because of the song, so it's not monetized. They
I
took the
got you.
copyright stuff out, and it went. No adverts can go on this. So if you see an advert on that, vet whatever that advert is, because who would want to put an advert on that? I do not know. But people enjoyed it, and it was an
Yeah,
eye-opening thing. But I did say to people, this is very disturbing and
yeah.
distressing and stuff like that. And it goes through
Truth.
the suicides, the people that were committing suicide. You don't see it at the time. You just see the odd death here, the odd death there. Goes into Chester Bennington. It goes into the guy. It was that other
Mm.
guy, the other singer that died a month before him.
Chris Cornell.
Chris Cornell. It goes into him.
Yeah.
There's that conspiracy that John Podesta is Chester Bennington's dad, and he abused him when he was younger. And
Is that accurate? Is that for real?
I don't know, but I'll tell you something. Chester Bennington's got a weird face, hasn't he?
It does look
He
And
like it.
does.
Podesta has got a weird
It
face as well.
does look
And it's
like it.
funny how
Does
them
look
two
like
weird faces do look quite similar, but
Dude,
I'm not saying
really.
those
anything like
Podesta
that.
brothers are evil.
Oh yeah.
Absolute
That's so
darkness.
weird that you say that, man. That's so weird because they do look so similar.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
They do. That's the thing. I've never been a big believer. Like when I started looking into the adrenochrome and the reptilian stuff, I was 15, 16. I gave up on it about 18. I thought it's one of those you talk about in the kitchen with your mates when you're under the influence of Jamaican Woodbine, and then you leave it and you move on. And I've gone into different parts of it and did my own social media stuff. And then people start talking about it now in 2024, 2025, and think, I know loads about this, then I need to bring this back to the table and start getting into it. And I couldn't believe that I'm talking about it now, and I've just turned 40 years old. I'm
Mad.
talking about fucking reptilians and eating children and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
here we
David
are.
Icke was right. David Icke was right all along.
absolutely he was. Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is.
The
Before
worst
I
thing
don't,
for me, I mean, I'm just going to say this with the Epstein files. We've just spoken, or we've spoken at length here about essentially love and raising our frequencies and focusing on things that make us happy being the answer. Is there a way here? I mean, with all of the stuff again that we've talked about, the dark stuff, we know that they know that they're doing this stuff on purpose. So with the release of these files, is this a giant gesture to make everybody in the world angry and negative and step away from the love and the things that they enjoy, to engage in hatred, to raise or lower the frequency? Is this like
I
a
get
big effort by the elites to keep everyone down one last time?
no, it's not, but I get why you would say that. What you're seeing is nothing happens by chance. There's free will, but because we're at the end of a cycle, and it's the same reason. This is the same answer if you were to ask me why UAP disclosure is happening now. Everything that has been manipulated in our system to control us by design is coming to the surface at the same time because it's the only way for it to stop. Because when we're going into this next cycle, these types of things are not going to be allowed. They're not functional in that space. And so it has to bring it to the surface. It comes to light and it's wiped away and dealt with and it's over. So what you're seeing is dark and it's going to feel awful. And there's going to be so many people that freak out over it. and rightfully so. But it's a part of a system design.
This is obviously something that everybody's going to experience, good or bad, whether they make that jump to that frequency shift or they stay behind essentially where they are. Is there going to be an HI there to assist and help and guide, or are they literally just going to stand back and watch it happen, or watch whatever?
Oh, it looks like it looks like they're going. It's going to turn like so. A lot of the technological parts of the math that we were given, like we have technologies that we were given, and I don't want to get into specifics because that'll raise some red flags.
Can you give us a clue at least of what that technology like can do?
We're going to go like this. What it looks like is that we're being given the frameworks for technologies that would have been Atlantean level things, interdimensional communication, medical resonance therapy for using quantum resonance to be able to heal. You get into some spacey things. You get into some energy things. We have all sorts of stuff. We have 15 patents we're about to file. And we have more. It just takes a lot of time because this is all unfolding in real time. This is happening every week. Like it just doesn't stop. We live in a perpetual state of astonishment. We are making connections all over the place. Now that we got the ancient site thing, like I'm super excited. This feels like it's got an Indiana Jones type of a situation, but like we were okay. I'll give you an example. Something crazy that happened we didn't talk about. Last summer, we were given coordinates and a time. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything of what it was. So we plug it in and it's at Mount Shasta in California. Don't know anything about it. Never been there. And so we took 11 people there. Like in our group, my dad even went to sanity check the situation. So we show up at that coordinate at that time, and right where that coordinate is, there is a distortion field in our line of sight that looks like the heat waves coming off a road in the desert. You know what I'm talking about, like the distorted visual field. And so we see that. We didn't know what to do. We didn't really know what to do, but we ended up going through it, and we went through two more of those, and then we get to the last one, and it's much bigger. And what happens as we walk through is that people started getting DMT visuals in the woods on the side of a volcano with no DMT involved. Because what was happening is that every one of those little distortion fields that we walked through was raising our frequency to meet and tune us back to that same thing we're tuning ourselves to with DMT. And there are beings and all sorts of things that were in there showing us these ancient temples that were on in this area thousands and thousands of years ago.
You could all see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there were things that happened in there that are not possible to be explained. Like my dad broke his toe the day going out there on the shower glass, broke his middle toe. He's dealt with pain he's had both knees replaced, pain patches, pain pills every day for a long time, just kind of deteriorating as he's gotten older. I mean, he's 70. In that space, there's like this healing that happens, and he has no pain at all anymore. He's no pain meds, no pain patches, toe's not broken. He's now walking miles a day. And then we started getting all this additional information. It was like a milestone point for us. The interactions ramped up after that. But we go the next night or the next morning to another place that we had coordinates. We show up there, and like so we can all feel our chakras because of what's happened. And my wife is holding my hand, and we're standing in a circle, just don't really know what to do. But she said her throat chakra starts vibrating, and so she just feels like she needs to speak. So she starts saying, it's kind of like a prayer. Like we'd all come together, like it's really sweet. And then our heads are bowed. And she says, we don't keep our eyes on the ground. We keep it up on the sky where it belongs. We all look up, and there is a streak of light, like 200 feet over the top of us. And we're all just like, oh my God. But we could see further away 8 more orbs of light that were we couldn't explain, but that one streaking across the sky right over us, right at that moment, with all that stuff going on, and then it snaps. And so you've got people that can see all sorts of beings around us. Um, if you did DMT, you could see them. If you didn't do them, you could just see their orbs of light. But there's hundreds of them in the woods. Like it was incredible, and we just know that we're going to continue to have more and more experiences like that. But that came from a set of coordinates, and we went on faith. Just all right, if we're going to do this, and we're going to see what happens, and all of us are blown away at
How
what
was them
happened
coordinates given to you
through a being talking to us.
through the DMT?
Yep.
Brad, there's a place about 45 minutes away from us. It's Nine Sisters, it's called. It's 9 ley lines that intersect. And there's a megalithic structure that's clearly buried there as well. This is something that Dan and me were going to go and have a look at. What do you make of the place, of such a place? What would you suggest doing once we get there?
I don't know. We haven't gotten that far into the ancient sites yet. Like that one, we were invited. Or it feels like we were invited. That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that. We don't get into any occult or rituals at all. So I'm not sure. I'm probably not the right person to ask.
But it's evidence again that the ancients knew something that we clearly are not being told now.
Yeah. Well, you can feel these fields. Like if you go to Sedona, Arizona, which is a big energetic ley line hotspot, there are vortexes there that are the energy so strong it causes the trees to twist and as they grow, and you can physically feel it. That's why so many spiritual people have landed there. There are 27 of those portals on Mount Shasta. That's why there's so many spiritual people in that sound too. Some people are more attuned to it now, but back in the day when you didn't have all of these networks and all of this bullshit that's clouding our signal, the food was cleaner and we don't have all of this processed stuff that is affecting our signal. You're more attuned to be able to feel those things and just intuitively know, if that makes sense.
So we've had you for nearly an hour and 5 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up soon. I don't know what happened to Dan. But I want to ask you about Chris Bledsoe and maybe finish on Chris Bledsoe. And he's made a prediction, and that prediction is probably only a month away.
Those dates are not accurate. I'm pretty sure he has revised that. Lee, did you talk to him about that?
Yeah, so he's looking at heading out there for the fall for whatever he thinks.
Yeah,
coming.
We're getting that it's in August.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes towards that end.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in August?
Well, he says new information is going to be. I can't dig into. I know what's going to unfold, but I probably shouldn't talk about it yet.
Is that off your own? Is that something that you're making a decision on personally, or has somebody asked you not to go into that?
We're supposed to be there, so
okay. So you're going to Egypt this year?
Yep. Yeah, we are supposed to be there. It's kind of like the coordinates. It started out like that, and then
what date are you going? What date are you going, Brad?
Right now, we've got it pinpointed around August 12th.
My birthday on the 16th. I fancy a holiday, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. Come on, come hang out. Yeah, man. So if you have near-death experience, you're probably having unusual things happen to you because the veil that we've been talking about the entire time is thinning. And for NDE experiencers, it's already thin. So they're starting to get supernatural type things happen to them more than the average person. But when we get into the information that we're getting, like so many of us are getting Egyptian information. Like I talked about this on the last one. I went through a 40-day water only fast as I started telling my story because as insane as my experiences have been, I needed a way for people to take it seriously. And so I didn't eat for 40 days. And I told a little bit more of my story on TikTok every day. As I'm going through that and dealing with these beings, they're teaching me that the emerald tablets of Thoth are important. and that the halls of Amenti are important and that they're underneath the pyramids. And then we're starting to get more information. So the Bible only contains 2 months of Yeshua's life. The Rosicrucians have been keeping the records of the Essenes and the Great White Brotherhood for thousands or for a long time. They are the keepers of that information now, which has all of the other information from Yeshua's life. The story goes is that after he's schooled the people at the priests at the temple, there's a big gap in his age. And the way the Rosicrucians explain it is he goes through India and Tibet, learns Hinduism and Buddhism, and then comes back. And then there's an initiation that happens with John the Baptist and the Great White Brotherhood inside a hidden chamber in the Great Pyramid. And then you access it in between the paws of the Sphinx. There's a tunnel that goes underneath, and it pops up underneath in this hidden chamber. I make a post about that, about learning that. And then 2 weeks later is when the scan pyramid stuff comes out, and it reveals that hidden chamber on the inside. And there's no access point
That's true,
to
though,
it
'cause I was
from any
watching
of
your
them.
videos because obviously I'm on TikTok, I was
Yeah.
watching your videos. In fact, that was the last time we spoke when you started to do those videos, I think it was. It was
Well,
during
Louis Decordier is the French guy who did the ground penetrating radars, isn't he?
Mhm.
I spoke to
Yeah.
him the other week because he's gone out to Egypt as well. He's now in Cairo,
Yeah.
and they've been granted access to start digging essentially.
That's incredible.
Do
It's
you think this is
surprising.
connected then? So the people are given permission now to do this excavation of this site,
Everything is happening right now
and it's
for a
converging.
reason.
It's
It is
converging to August, maybe.
I use that word all the time, and I've never used it really before. It is a giant conversion of You're going to find out everything
It's
that
just
you're
disclosure.
interested in is connected. It is giant.
Across the board.
Here it comes. Here's all of it
So
at once.
sorry, so Bledsoe said there's going to be, is it the Star Irregulus?
Yeah.
Is that not going to happen in April now? Or is that still going to happen in April?
No.
So it's going to be
No.
August, that.
Correct. They've spent more time digging into that, and the fall is the accurate timeline.
Okay, I have to ask you
Uh,
because it's just me. I have to get a little bit from every interview we get. Can you give us a clue on what you think without giving us too much then, because you want to keep it to yourself of what we might
of what to
expect?
expect.
What are you looking at when you go on the 12th? What are you going to be looking up at and expecting to see?
Are you
Well,
looking up? Are you
Are you
looking up?
looking up? Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a remote viewer that said something about something you'd see in the sky, but based off what our understanding is, there's stuff underneath that's going to be opened, and you're going to have access to it, and that stuff is going to be significant. So are you familiar with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and that story?
A little bit.
A little
A little
bit.
bit.
Okay.
Freshen us up because I imagine the casual viewer isn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do a part 3. No, we will. We'll do a
Yes.
part 3 because you've got a
Well,
wealth of knowledge. Like I'm learning all the time every time I listen to you. Like you're a different person to when I last spoke to you 7 months ago. It feels like
That's it.
it
We
does.
can't do part 3 in 7
You
months.
seem more. You just seem a lot different to what you was there. It's like next time I speak to you, you'll probably have more knowledge and you'll be more open to
Yeah.
more.
Well, that first one I had, there's the story of what has happened is so big that I'm really just rambling through what's happened um, to explain the experience and how it's all unfolding. And we can get more conversational here, but like we're literally encyclopedias of information at this point. But getting into the Emerald Tablet. So the story is that this being from Atlantis, Thoth, leaves Atlantis at the fall of Atlantis, resettles at the land of Kem, which is modern day Egypt, and that he is the one that built the pyramids. And underneath it, he builds the halls of Amenti, which is all of these records and all of the stuff from Atlantean times. He writes all of this information on these emerald tablets, and they are technically lost. But in the early, I want to say 1920s, there's a guy named Maurice Doreal. He was living in the United States. He was most likely a Rosicrucian. He ended up starting his own mystery school after that. Started getting visions in his dreams that he needed to go down to Mexico and find the emerald tablets, which didn't make any sense to anyone. But he goes down there, finds them, translates them, and like they were right underground, right where they said he would be, or where they said they would be. And he takes them back to Egypt. And they've been lost ever since then. But when you start reading what it's saying, it completely aligns with everything that we have learned. And part of the reason that's the case is one of the primary beings that we see more often than most is Thoth. He shows up. But what's interesting is why he shows up then. So there's also later on in history, Hermes Trismegistus that gets into Hermeticism. There's a lot of overlap between Hermes Trismegistus and Thoth. It's because the way that the beings incarnate here, the same divine being is incarnated as both. They come at different, they're called archetypes. They come at different times in our civilization cycles to reveal, this one reveals new information. He was also Quetzalcoatl in Mexico. And that's why all these pyramids are built on Orion's belt. Like we understand why everything is happening now. But there, now with the Scan Pyramid Project, you're seeing the structure underneath, and you're starting. And go look at Hawara. What's the stuff that's underneath there? Like there's a metal Stargate that is underneath there. It's the shape of an omega symbol, and there's no like you can't. There's no other way to explain that.
Huge as well, right? It's massive.
It's it's enormous.
There's no way on earth ancient civilizations made. Well, it's metallic for a kickoff.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't make 60-foot metallic objects that long ago. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then what we're talking about, we were talking about that harmonic constant, and I was doing that overlay over the planet. One of the primary origination points on that is Karnak, and I'm not sure why yet. But we've got a lot of ancient history to explore. But we've got places we're supposed to be. We did the Shasta thing. We know we're going to end up in other places over time. I'll kind of leave it at that. I won't explain.
No, yeah, I
We'll
reckon
save that for maybe
we'll do
later
part three. No, thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
Like, I love speaking to people on stuff that I don't have a lot of knowledge on. Like I know a little bit about it, but like you're a wealth of knowledge on this. I've never taken DMT. I've never experienced this or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you one quick question, if you can answer it in the next 2 minutes for me. It's the telepathy tapes. These kids seem to be able to go into another realm.
Yeah.
Is that connected to some of the stuff that you go into?
So there's people in our group have seen the hill. They all go to the hill, and they communicate with each other. So what you're seeing with the telepathy tapes is the human mind in a normal able-bodied person is spread out over thinking about all these different things and all of these different functions. What you're seeing with these nonverbal autistic children is the brain's actual capacity if all of your brain capacity was focused in one direction. That is the kind of levels of things that you can do. You're starting to see more and more people realize, because their it's not fringe anymore, they can do these mind reading things. It's something that you don't even know to ask yourself if you can even do. But the Psi games that happened last year, the people are having telekinesis. There's this guy, Chris Fazio, that's started to show up. He can generate so much electricity from the ends of his fingers. Like it's shocking. But what happens is he can move his hands over your body and feel if you have anything wrong inside of you that's blocking your energy flow. And when he touches you, you squeal. Like it is so much energy. But then when he does that, he can see where the problems are and can go in and clear that energy, and you feel better. There was a kid that had, I think he was a kid, but blind child, had one eye that was off to the side. He puts his hands on the kid's head. Their eye's been that way the entire time. Puts the hands on the kid's head, and they both just get this jolt. Like you could tell it's a lot. And then the kid opens his eyes. That eye is straight. And they're like, he could still blind, but the eye was straight. And they're like, how did you do that? He's like, I don't know, but when I did that, I could just see what was wrong. And I went in and fixed it. Like you're starting to see more and more of this.
It's crazy, man. That's mad. Reminds me of the Mel Gibson story he told on Joe Rogan, where he went for some issue and he felt himself levitating off the floor with this guy that was doing something to him. So there's something going on.
Chris Bledsoe did this too, right? Chris Bledsoe went to Washington and helped a prominent politician's child, right? He mentions that.
The Mel Gibson thing.
With his healing. or whatever
Oh, with
lady
Chris,
did to
yeah.
him. Chris has
Yeah.
mentioned it.
So some people are healers and they have these gifts. Like I know one person that's gifted, and when she tries to connect to you, if you have an illness, what shows up in front of her is a hologram, and she can see where your problems are.
Wow.
She can physically see, like, and so like Danny, the guy with the DMT laser experiment, when he does DMT, a device shows up. He calls it the console, and you can interact with it, and it's the same thing that shows up every time. There was a guy, I can't remember his name, but he calls it Upside, who had done so many drugs he felt like he broke his brain. But he has like this computational layer that he can interact with all the time.
Good God. It's
Yeah,
incredible, isn't it?
dude, I'm telling you, like my life is a straight up sci-fi film, and of the coolest way possible. Like
In a
we've been
year's
through some
time,
challenges, but
in a year's time, pretty much anybody could do this. Essentially, is what
yeah,
people are
well,
saying.
yeah, like we can induce that point of gnosis. The quickest we've been able to do it was within a week. Um, yeah, this is inducible. Like it's teachable. This is repeatable.
Can you teach this online? Could you do this on the live? Could you do like a live? I don't know, like teach people how to do it live and go through an experience in a live situation.
So we started teaching these classes in January, and we're going through it with our first group right now. There's no DMT use because you really don't need it. Once you understand the mechanics that we've learned, DMT just becomes a catalyst, like to increase the experience and the depth that you can go. But like we're able to show all of these people just by using the geometry of our reality to be able to navigate all of this stuff. And like we took the group astral traveling a couple weeks ago, and it was just fascinating. Like everybody's mind's blown that this is that repeatable. But yes, technically we could, but it takes time. There's things that you need to learn. There's things that you need to be able to clear. There's coaching that has to happen if we're going to do something online, but we do have that. Like we are teaching that now.
Fascinating. Right, Brad, I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
And we'll
Component of it. Don't push it away. It is going to be so much more important than you ever imagined. It doesn't mean you have to go, spend time in prayer, go to church or any of that shit. You don't need that. And that's kind of what the clarity that's going to end up coming spiritually from this is that you didn't need the church to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And so it's going, the churches are going to be destroyed. There's going to be no value for them anymore.
Well, that's always been the trick, hasn't it? Is that the divine is within each of us. That it's looking inwards.
God is within inside you. We know what that means. We
Yeah.
completely know what that means. Yeah. So cool, man.
Yeah, you had 2 hours. You look a bit tired now talking, so we'll give you a break.
I could
We'll have a
talk
chat.
all, dude. I could
This
talk
is
about
life.
this
This
for
is
days.
existence.
Fascinating. I love listening to him. I love listening to him because I'm sure I'll do a bit of research into him and probably send him some messages, send me some stuff. And hopefully next time we speak to you, you might have had that discussion with Chris Bledsoe.
Yeah, I love all this stuff, man. I'm
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
100%. I'll try my best. Oh well, I will. I'll connect you with Chris. Just send me a cell number or something. I'll just put it in his group and I'll put the ball in his court.
Send the video clip so he knows what he's talking about. So he's got a bit of reference and stuff. Well, you
Send
might
me
just
a
think
bio
he's
as well.
guy that's took DMT and wants to speak to him. You don't
Exactly.
want to
That's my point, Matty. Send me a bio or what you want to. So introduce yourself to him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think just getting his attention. Like I've sent him, and the email I sent him was a little bold.
well, why don't we clip this out? Sorry, Matty. Just while I think, why don't we clip this out? Why don't you actually just say a message to him now? Say what you want to speak to him.
He did do about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. It'll be more organic and we'll look less forced if we clip that. So let's do that.
Yeah, you don't want to do like a begging thing, do you? You don't want to do that.
That's not what I'm doing.
It's like the old video dating from back in the day.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on anyway, and we'll speak to you soon.
Lee, great to finally meet you, man. We'll connect. If you want to do another one just on your show, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Take it easy, guys.
See you later, pal.
All right, see ya.
Good night.
Bye.